And to my left here is Kerry Pinneman. He is probably a guru in write images and server templates, so we're happy to have him with us today. First, quick poll, just to get an idea of the audience here. How many are doing Chef server template development? Couple, all right. How many RightScript-based server development? Okay. How many don't know what a server template is? Okay, one. I think you're still okay. A lot of the stuff we're going to be talking about today is really still applicable. I didn't realize when we were going to do this that Michael was going to tee up for us exactly what we're going to talk about. But really the two main points are, how can we make you more efficient, and how can things be more repeatable? So if really there's a message for today, it's learn from us. And so let's just jump right in. We have a lot of best practices to cover.
All right. Thanks, Tim. So there are a lot of best practices that we do at RightScale when we're developing our own server templates. And there's many, many. It would have taken way too long to bring all of them that we wanted to bring here today. So we just kind of narrowed it down to the ones that have been saving our team the most amount of time and heartache. So with that, I'm just going to dive right into our top picks. I think there's about 4 or 5 best practices. And the first one I'm going to start with is our development workflow. Now, a lot of you are RightScript developers. And the workflow that we've been using with our new chef recipes. And for those of you who for development, it can be tedious. You make a change and you have to save it and you push it through your workflow. And you hit run on the dashboard and you dropped your instance and you find out, oh, something's broken. I have a syntax error somewhere. And so now you have to go back through that workflow, make a change, and walk it through this pipeline. And that can take a couple minutes per change. And after a while, that can eat at your day. So to save time, we've come up with a development workflow to bypass this whole pipeline and actually just do things more at the command line. And we do so with a little-known tag called download cookbooks once. And what this does is it tells the RightScale platform, hey, don't download my scripts to the instance. Download them once and then leave them alone. Typically what we'll do is we'll download the scripts every time so you have the latest and greatest to run with. But for development, download them once and then let me go onto the instance and modify them so I can get something running locally first before I ever commit those changes or make those changes back into the dashboard. And we don't work on the instance in the cloud because it's ephemeral and we could lose our changes. So what we do is we actually work on our dev machine with our favorite IDE or editor. And then we use rsync to just rsync the changes into the cache directory on the instance and run them locally on the instance, make a change, sync, run, make a change, sync, run. And the workflow is now, instead of minutes, it's a matter of seconds where you make a change and test it. So it's a lot more efficient workflow, and we enjoy using it a lot. So I'm going to jump into a demo showing you a bit of how that workflow looks like, and so you can kind of get a feel for it. So here we go. Looking at our dashboard, we launched an instance here on Google, and it's stranded. Okay. So let's go find out why it's stranded. Not due to the cloud, but my own code. Oh, of course, my login is timed out. Oh, the compliance security. All right. So I've bookmarked that deployment. And there it is, stranded server again. Let me check out the audit entries. We'll take a look and see why this boot failed. Jump down to the last script that ran. And I see that my buggy cookbook default recipe failed on line 20. And it failed because Apache has no candidate package for app cache. So I know exactly what that problem is, because I intentionally put this bug in there. But we're trying to install the Apache package. Most people know it's actually the Apache 2 package. So I make a change locally on my laptop. And now I need to propagate it to my stranded instance. Before I do, I'm going to log in to the instance and show you that I, in fact, am running on this failed instance that I claim to be. Grab its IP address. Okay. Make this a little bit bigger here. And so I can run scripts from the command line instead of the dashboard using rs-run recipe or rs-run write scripts. And I'm going to just run my buggy cookbook default recipe. And that kicks it off. And I'm going to tail the log. And, all right, it's already failed. So the recipe's failed, and it's failed with, let's try it again. So you can actually see it run. Var log, syslog. Chain those two commands together. See it run again. It's downloading the cookbooks. Let me make this a little bit smaller. And it has the exact same error on line 20 of the default recipe. So now we need to get our code over into the cache directory on this instance. And I'm going to run up just a little bit higher, and it actually tells me where it's downloading the cookbooks and scripts. So this directory here, I look in there, and there, sure enough, there's my cookbook and my code. So I could change it here, but this is not a Git repo, so I couldn't check in my changes. So I'm going to switch over to my source code on my local machine. And I'm just going to use rsync, but I never remember the commands for rsync, so I actually have a little Ruby script that I use. Which just basically calls rsync for me with some parameters like excluding the get metadata, because I don't want to transfer all that stuff. So I'm going to use that sync to script. I need the IP address, and I need the cache. Oops. So first I'll grab the IP address of the instance again. And the path where my cookbook lives. Oops. Forgot a backspace. / rather. Of our cache RightScale cookbooks, and all my source code gets shoved over to that instance. So there's a little bit of setup for this dev workflow, but if you're going to be making multiple changes, the overhead is negligible. Okay, so my code's over there, and now I can run that command again. And now it should install the Apache 2 cookbook, or package this time, and it is, and it's done. So there's one time-saving tip for you, is to use rsync, make your changes locally, get things running. But there's more to it than that. The other tip that you should be aware of, and something that I did when I first came to RightScale 4 years ago, is I wanted to see this server go operational so bad and get it out of the stranding state, that now that I got the script working, checked in, pushed through that workflow, I just relaunched the server so I can get it operational. But 9 times out of 10 that bites you, because there's other scripts that you didn't get to in your boot list that potentially could fail also. So the next tip is to make sure that everything runs before you do a relaunch. Minimize your relaunching as much as possible. So my script that failed was second to last. So what I will do is go down this list, the boot list, and just make sure that every script runs by hand. So I can run, hitting this icon is the same as doing rs run recipe or write script at the command line. You can see the log starting. It's starting to run this simple index recipe. And of course, there's another failure. Who wrote this code? So I need to fix this. So jumping back to my local source code, just going to jump into simple index, and it's a real easy recipe. It's a template. It just writes down a simple file from a template, var www index. So it's just writing an index page into my Apache. And the owner's Apache. I'm not going to debug what the problem is because I know what it is for the sake of time. There's no Apache user on the system. It needs to be an owner of root for this file. So now I will do my sync, which is already set up. Made the change, sync, it only copies over the file that I changed. And now I will run that recipe again, this time using the command line. And if I didn't have a typo, it should actually work. Okay, it's completed. And okay, so I know all my scripts are going to work, but still, I don't want to relaunch. I want to make sure that my service is working properly. So I need to inspect and see everything's working fine. And in this case, it's real easy to check. I just go to my super awesome web page, and there it is. It worked. Just one more quick demo of how the workflow goes. Let's say I just need to make a change to my template file or any other thing. Now that I have everything set up, it's a matter of just making a change. And doing the sync. And running again. So that took maybe 2 seconds, maybe 3, so I'm a little slow. But in just that amount of time, I was able to make a change and see it reflected on my server in the cloud right away. So this is a workflow that we've come to love at RightScale, and hopefully it can save you guys some time too.
So I guess the thing to learn from us here is, you always want to run locally, make your changes locally, don't go back through that whole process, and then avoid relaunching. Relaunches take 5 to 10 minutes. Just make sure you go down your scripts. And of course, this was a contrived example, but when you're doing a real complex template, you're going to be in those scripts, working your way down, fixing things, and you're going to save yourself a ton of time.
So we have a lot to go through here, but we probably have time for one quick question if anybody has one. Okay, we'll keep moving then. Okay, so going to production. The lesson here is don't run your servers on head. Make sure when you deploy a server to production, it is on a committed server template revision. And just committing is not enough. You got to do more than just committing before you put that server in production. The package repositories for Linux servers, those can change daily. And what you tested today may not be, well, definitely will not be the same packages, the same software that's installed when you launch your server a month from now. So if you want to make sure that your server is going to launch time and time again, you can use a feature that the RightScale platform or the RightScale mirrors provide, and that's we take a snapshot of those package distributions every day. And you can actually freeze your package mirrors for your server template to a specific date, the date that you tested with, the day that you know is going to work. So in the, when you have an auto-scaling event and you know those app servers are going to launch and be able to take care of the traffic, it's not a crapshoot of, oh, did somebody put, some package maintainer put in a package that had a broken dependency yesterday and now I'm unable to scale at all. So package repository freeze dates are important. Freeze those dates. Also, if you have any chef recipes in your server template, you'll also need to lock down your cookbook repositories. Here there's 3. You need to drill down into each one and lock them down. By default, they point to master of your source code repository. So any change that a developer pushes up to those repos could affect the configuration of your servers and cause them to strand. So what we do is we drill down into these. We lock them to a SHA because a SHA is immutable. We don't use a branch or tag, even though there's some tendency to, but branches and tags are mutable. Lock them down to a SHA, they're immutable. So for the first 2 bullet points, the RightScale platform helps you with this, gives you the ability to freeze both items under the repos tab of your server template. The 3rd bullet point, though, external dependencies, is up to you. When you're writing your scripts, you need to be aware of external dependencies. If you download a package from pair.org for your PHP app server, you've now added a dependency to your server that, or server template, that when your servers launch, you need that website to be up and that file in that exact location. If they're down, you're down. Those servers will not launch. So your auto-scaling could break there as well. So the best practice here is to pre-download any packages that you need before external packages and put them in an object store like S3 or cloud files.
So really, the lessons learned here are pretty simple. Commit, freeze, and then minimize your external dependencies.
So controlling changes is the next topic, a place where I've personally run into problems, and it's pretty typical workflow or kind of change diagram here. This is a server template where you at Rev 4, you tested everything, it's good to go. You've deployed your server template out into production, and time goes by. That server's running fine. You have a few, projects that you're working on, putting some new configuration changes into your server template. You have 3 more commits, and then somebody comes running into your office and says, "Hey, hold the phone. We got to make a change right now. We've got to make a change. We have to push it out to production. We got a bug. Drop everything." Well, with this kind of scenario, you have a bunch of untested changes on your server template. So now, how do you make a quick change and deploy it that you feel comfortable with? So this is a pretty typical problem that customers get into, and the way we work around it is by actually having 2 server templates. We have a production server template, which we keep pristine, and we have a staging server template where we do all of our development. So the production server template, its only job is to stay exactly lockstep into what's deployed out there. So in the event that somebody comes in and has an emergency, you just make your change, verify it and deploy it. No big fire drill. The staging is where we do all of our development, we do all of our testing, and only once it's all ready to go and working do we merge that back to the production server template and then deploy to production again. And in a single developer environment, a server template developer environment, maybe if you have 2 server template developers, you could get away with this. But with multiple server template developers, it's just that would be too crazy. And so what we do is we actually have dev server templates where we clone off of the staging and develop each feature individually on their own clone. This is pretty standard software development, version control, branching, and merging strategies. It's something that's been in practice in software engineering for a long time, and we're applying it to systems configuration, system administration. And so the idea here is pretty simple. You do all your development work for your feature on your development server template. Once you've tested it there, you know your feature is working, merge it back into the staging branch. We do all of our integration testing there, get everything working. Then, only then, do we merge to production.
So really, the lesson here is, and it seems obvious, but really we run into this too. We get excited, middle of the night, people start changing production server templates, and you don't know where you're at if you need to relaunch. So keep that production server template pristine, and then just use cloning. As Michael was saying, like DevOps, or the development part of DevOps, is now we can use those techniques that they've been using for so many years, and with server templates and cloning, you can do the standard merging, branching type things, and it's going to save you a lot of headache in the end. So just a few words on customizing. The server templates that RightScale puts out are ready to go out of the box. You can launch and use them. But everybody's infrastructure is different, and we realize that. So, there's best practices that we like to convey around making changes. We suggest that you don't go in and start changing things inside our scripts, because that's just going to cost you an issue down the road. But to take maybe, if you have a configuration change, really simple example, just create another script, put it at the bottom, so when it runs through the list and it gets to your script, it's going to change it the way you want that server template to be. That way, if you, down the road, we put out a new version of that server template, new features, you can import that server template in, put your custom scripts right in at the bottom, retest, and you're going to be off and running a lot quicker than if you have to go back and go, now where did I make all the changes in all these scripts? Then the other thing we like to convey is well, I guess the RightScale platform really allows or encourages you to build your own server templates. We obviously can't provide everything you need, and so we have what's called the base server template. And this is going to be one of your real big time savers if you don't know about it. Go out, pull it down, and this is what you should use to build server templates when you're going to make a custom template altogether. It already has in it all the logging, alerts, firewall stuff, and then it's always been tested with all our latest write images under all the clouds we support. So it's a great place to start if you're going to do custom server templates. And now the final topic for the day, because we do want to save some time for questions, is data storage. Now, some pretty obvious bullets here with storage, but cloud and storage are really a big deal. You really need to think about what you're doing there. So, keep data in multiple locations, pretty obvious. Most clouds, volumes is the best way to handle these local backups and local data. And then we always suggest that you take that local data and get it off of the cloud using remote object stores. All clouds have this now, and we provide ways to do this. And the way we provide is called the Storage Toolbox. Now, many of you may not know about this. It's relatively new, but it is, I guess, we wouldn't call it a best practice. We would call it a whole bunch of best practices are built in here. We've been developing server templates, I think, since like day 2, so around 6 years. And all the knowledge we have about doing database and data storage in the cloud is built into this template for you to use. So what you do is if you have an app that you're going to write that's custom, you just, same thing, import this thing and clone it, and then start all your development on top of this. And you're going to get a huge, huge head start. And all the learnings that we've had over the past 6 years are built into this. So I'm going to turn it back to Carrie. He's going to dive in here quickly on just a couple of things that are some highlights. There's going to be much more in this template than we'll be able to cover today. But take it away, Carrie.
Okay, yeah. If you're going to know one server template that RightScale puts out, this is a good one to know. And just to give you a little bit of insight in how it works if you're going to leverage it. How I'd use it is I would just import it into my account, clone it, and start building my server right on top of it for servers that need a storage solution. And so just a little bit about how it works under the hood. In general, there's two big concepts to the storage toolbox: primary backups and secondary backups. And if you launch the storage toolbox as is, you'll get something like is shown over here in Cloud X. You'll get a server A, which gets launched. Then there's scripts in the toolbox to mount a volume or a stripe of volumes, and then start doing primary backups, which are pretty efficient. They're volume, like EBS backups. I'm sure all of you have used them. And you can set schedules, for the primary backups to happen on a certain schedule. But in the event that Cloud X goes down, the access to your volumes and snapshots also goes away. And so that's where we came up with the secondary backup, where basically it's just a archive of your file system. When these volumes are mounted, they're on Linux systems, they're mounted to /mnt storage. So that's where you put all your application data that you care to back up or restore. So basically for secondary backup is we just take whatever's in that subdirectory and tar it up, break it up into pieces, and do a multi-part upload in essence, uploading these chunks in parallel and to a remote object store. Even if the remote object store doesn't support multi-part upload, we have our own algorithms that do this for, of course, S3, Cloud File, Swift, you name it, Azure Blob Storage. And so when Cloud X goes down, you now have the ability to take your storage toolbox based server template, launch in another cloud like Cloud Y here, mount that volume, and then get your data back onto that volume and get up and running before, while they're still trying to figure out what happened with Cloud X. So this is a bit of disaster recovery that's built into the storage toolbox for you. To go one level deeper, kind of how the backups work, I'm going to go through a couple scenarios, kind of the typical scenario of what people are doing on the cloud these days for backing up, and then kind of show you how RightScale does it in the storage toolbox. Some of the cool, just one of the cool features in the storage toolbox that's already there built for you. So the typical backup on the cloud, you have to have a consistent file system. So you need to lock your application, in this scenario is a database, and then sync the file system to flush any writes that are pending down to the physical disk, and then you take an EBS snapshot or volume snapshot, depending on what cloud you're on. And that can take, that's an API call to the cloud and can take a minute or two to complete. Once that's done, you unlock your database. And a minute or two is fine for many applications, but in some scenarios, heavily loaded databases, it's not fast enough. And so the storage toolbox puts an extra layer on top of your volume. This is kind of an exploded view of what we put on your volume. How many of you are familiar with LVM technology? Okay, a few of you. Well, LVM is probably, to me, is one of the coolest features that Linux systems provide. And it's been around for decades. It's rock solid. And so what we do is we create a logical volume on top of your cloud volume, and a portion of it is for your data. And we reserve a smaller portion, I think 10% by default, is empty for a snapshot, an LVM snapshot. And so the LVM snapshot actually happens within sub-second times, and this is how we avoid locking your application for very long. And it basically let me go through how you do it. It's basically the same scenario. You would lock your database, sync your file system to get a consistent file system, and then where we differ is we take an LVM snapshot, a local snapshot, sub-second time, and then we unlock your application, and you're off to the races again. That local snapshot gives us that consistent file system that we need, and then we can open up to writes, and that data storage region can become inconsistent, and we don't really care. we just start our backup, and it can take 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. We really don't care because we have our snapshot, we have our consistent file system, and our application's unlocked. Everything's working while this cloud snapshot is occurring. So that's basically, taking your application locking time from minutes to sub-seconds, which is a pretty powerful feature. To just kind of finish the cycle, if you were going to restore this volume from a snapshot, we would restore the volume. It would have this same, layout on top of it. Your inconsistent, potentially, data storage, your consistent snapshot, and then we perform a merge of the snapshot into the data storage region, and now you have a pristine replica of when you took that LVM snapshot. So I hope that gives you a little insight into what you get in that storage toolbox, kind of how it works, so you can understand it if you start playing with it. And I recommend this is something you could import into your account tonight and start playing around with.
So I think, as Michael was talking about agility and things like that, this is a great example. It will save you a ton of time. I know we keep saying that, but that's why we're telling you about some of these things. Import this template if you're going to write a custom template that needs storage in some way. And then you're going to get the 6 years of RightScale doing this type of thing already built out for you. And we always hear worry about building your app, not about the underlying infrastructure. So we can do that for you. This thing's supported on all our clouds, and it's quite a powerful tool.
Okay, that's about it. We just want to leave you with some links. I think these slides will be available on the RightScale Compute
Probably
website.
Before you're back on Monday.
And just because we kind of went quickly over some of this stuff, here's links to the ServerTemplate Developer Guide. There's a lot more best practices in there that we follow at RightScale. The rsync workflow for chef scripts is detailed in a tutorial. You can try it out. It outlines the syntax of the download cookbooks once tag. Also prepare for production, locking down your server templates, kind of what I went over before, and then links to the base server template and the storage toolbox in the marketplace. It's the runbooks for these two templates.
Maybe you want to just explain what a runbook is if they're not sure.
Yeah, a runbook.
In RightScale terms.
Yeah, runbook is part of the documentation that comes along with the server templates, kind of a playbook for when you're running these in operations, different scenarios for restoring or what to do in the case of a failure. Mostly around the storage toolbox is where it's important. Lastly is this link. I didn't mention it before, but it's where we keep all of the source code for our latest v13 based server templates. And this is all the configuration scripts for those server templates. If nothing else, I would go read the README in this repo. It kind of goes over our philosophy about the cookbooks, also gets into some of the design patterns and design decisions that we've made that should help you navigate through the cookbooks and understand them. With that,
yeah, maybe one other thing to say about that link. If you're going to do a custom template, go out, look about how we designed our templates, some of our more complex ones, and copy that. What we try to do is we try to take extra time to make sure that we're developing these server templates with good software practices. So you should be able to go in and look and see how we put them together. And I think it'll probably help you build better server templates as you go forward.
That's right. The way they're designed is you can actually plug in your own load balancer, plug in your own app server, or even your own database into the framework and have it play with the rest of the standard RightScale v13 server templates. Okay.
So it looks like we have about 5 minutes for questions because we got started a little bit late. Usually we find this is probably the best part of the talk. A lot of people have some great questions, so feel free to fire away at us. I have the guru up here, so there's probably no question that you can stump him with. I'll put him on the spot.
All right. Any questions? Sure. The question was, how about the versioning of the chef cookbooks? Could I explain that a little bit? And currently, we just use the source control repository that we keep it in. So we actually use GitHub for version control. Uh-huh. So if you were to fork our repository yourself, how would you keep track of your changes? And that's kind of goes back to the change slide that we were talking about earlier. You know, ideally, you would not fork those cookbooks, but rather you would write your own cookbook that wraps our cookbook. So calls our own cookbook, and then you put your scripts into the server template as well, or in place of the RightScale scripts. And so you maintain the RightScale cookbooks, and your custom cookbook on top modifies what we have in there for your special needs. If it's something that you think should be part of the cookbook itself, something that others could benefit from, you could actually then fork our cookbooks and contribute a patch, which we are open to contributions. But if it's something that's just for your company, I would recommend you keep your stuff separate, so then you have an upgrade path for when we produce new versions of that cookbook. And if you want to see me afterwards in the hallways, I can explain. There's a few techniques in Chef that make that kind of easier to do. Mm-hmm. Well, the question is, how do you, what's the best way to, when I clone a server template, kind of know what has been updated, what's available for update? Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. And that kind of goes back to the same slide, is if you don't modify the scripts that come from RightScale, if you can avoid that and write your own scripts to then, maybe undo something that the RightScale scripts did, or go beyond and configure something else, and keep those in your own scripts with, your company name maybe at the prefix, then by leaving the RightScale scripts intact, you give yourself an upgrade path. In the case of RightScripts, you'll get the yellow dot every time there's a new version, and you can update to the latest version. With Chef, you would update to the latest version of the repo path. Okay, the question is a storage toolbox the right thing to start with for a file system server, or a file server? An NFS server. That would be the best place to start if there's nothing out there already for you. I would look in the marketplace. There might be some Gluster FS server templates. I know our services team has done some Gluster FS engagements. Typically, they don't support all the operating systems that somebody might need, but they are a good starting point. And if they're not in the marketplace, it might be someplace where you might want to talk to PS. In the back. Mm-hmm. So the question is for Windows Server Templates. We want something similar to, can we do something similar for the Chef Cookbook way for PowerShell? And the simple answer to that is, I don't do Windows, sir. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. That's a cop-out. That is a good question. I would have to defer to our product team on that, but I know we are looking at ways of potentially pulling that out, allowing you to store it in an external repository as well. That guy.
Ryan O'Leary, Product Manager for Server Templates and Images.
All right. Yes, sir.
So on the first example, talking about skipping some steps.
So the question is, when you're bypassing the, that whole repository commit and refetch and mirroring, how do you ensure that you don't make changes that you didn't intend that might break something?
Not so much that you didn't intend, but
how do you make it repeatable? How do you make it?
Since we're bypassing the rigor.
Yeah. Since we're bypassing the rigor, how do you get those what you changed back into your workflow? And these changes are that is only for development. I would recommend to never do that to a production server. So this is just in a dev and test where you're developing your server template. By working on your local laptop, those changes are in a source control repository. And really what you're doing is you're just testing that what you have locally is going to work. And you're testing it on a throwaway machine that you don't care about. Once you do get it working, that's when you commit and you push to source control and put it through that pipeline. So instead of having 100 work in progress commits and pushing it through that pipeline every time, you're doing all your work in progress changes, doing that bypass rsync workflow until you get it working. And then push it through. One final commit and then push it through. And then that's where you want to do your relaunch, just once at the end, once you're pretty sure everything's working. That is a good question.
There's not the equivalent of the storage toolbox. The best thing to do there would be to take the database template suite, the SQL database template, and try to come off of that one.
Are there other databases besides SQL Server that you'd want to be running? Sure.
Right.
Sure. Yeah, it is built into there, so you could actually rip out or disable the SQL Server part of that template. Okay.
It is kind of hard for us to see. So, any other questions? Those were great questions.
Absolutely. That guy.
No, we're not taking questions from product, that's for sure.
Sure. So the question are there best practices for those more familiar with RightScripts and how they can use the Chef stuff? Sure, you can use our server templates out of the box. Our Chef server templates, which are all of our new V13 server templates, are based in Chef. But that doesn't mean that we don't still give love to RightScripts. We definitely support RightScripts across the board. And you can actually, if you need to modify something on those stock server templates of ours, you can actually add a RightScript to a server template with Chef servers. Put your custom RightScripts at the end and configure the things that you want to configure or reconfigure. Using RightScripts, you can mix and match, and we don't really care.
So is there anything special you have to do? I think maybe that was the question. Is there anything special to put RightScripts into Chef server templates that they need to know about? No?
No, I think it's pretty much straightforward.
We talk about it. We talk about it.
The question is, do we expect the Windows server templates to move in the direction of Chef? And the answer is they're actually already running Chef, but a PowerShell provider in Chef. Whether we support more of the Chef resources besides just the PowerShell resources, I'm not sure. It doesn't look like it's on the roadmap at this point. But we do have a site that we should have mentioned before, feedback.rightscale.com. If there's anything that you guys want or feel that we're missing, go there. It's kind of a social feedback site where people can vote. So put in your recommended feature and then get all your friends to vote for it.
Ryan does check that. You guys meet on it weekly, I believe.
Absolutely.
And so it is looked at, and that feedback does actually make its way into product. Okay, I think we're out of time. So just a summary, I think as Michael was saying, I keep referring to it, but I was not expecting him to tee it up like this. But the agility part is what we're trying to get at. So we're trying to give you some things to save time, as well as he was also talking about, repeatability, stability. DevOps people love that type of thing. And so a couple of techniques that we use to keep ourselves sane. We have multiple developers working on the same server template a lot of times. So do some of those things, go to the extra mile to do some cloning and keep things segregated, and then merge back in like the regular software industry's been doing for quite a while. We're definitely around the rest of the week, so if you need to find us, certainly our product manager's here as well. So we enjoy having you and look forward to seeing you the rest of the conference. Thanks.
Thank you.